Wanted to just start. We're going to give some time for everyone to get online. So how are you? How's Craig holding up, by the way? I haven't seen you guys in like almost a month. How's he holding up, not being able to go to the bar?
Well, I think he's holding up just fine. The question is, how am I holding up with him around so much? But adequate, let me just say, and lots of wine. So we're doing okay. You know,
So
we're all getting used to this new normal, you know? It's crazy.
It is crazy. I think that we're fortunate, you know, that California, we've made these measures and we're still safe. And, you know, I hope that everyone that's tuning in, it feels the same way, that they're safe and enjoying themselves. And, you know, today's going to be all about having some fun. We're going to hopefully show some fun to the people who are joining us.
And no matter where you are, even if you're outside of California or wherever, wine is going to make everything better.
Yes, it will. It has made life better for me, certainly. So thank you for producing such fabulous wines. So just wanted to kind of get a couple other questions, like how are you passing the time? What's on Netflix?
We're working, you know, I mean, it's still a lot here. I'm up at the hall. Our house is right next to the Rutherford winery, and so I'm not going into the cellar, but we still seem to have so much going on that I hardly feel like it's a break. The biggest difference for me is I get to sort of dress up from the waist up, you know, and so that saves maybe half the time in the morning. I like that.
I'm all about morning meetings and jam. That's all about it. That's me.
Totally. And Netflix, it's very hard. You know, we don't really have anything that we're crazy about. We've sort of gone to the end of Billions we love. We love Succession. We started a new one last night called it's about a preacher. It's pretty funny.
Oh, cool.
But anyway, it's on Netflix. But anyway, what are you doing? Are you watching anything?
I'm watching my kids mainly right now, but yeah, you know, I've just like the rest of the world, I've gone through the Tiger King, and I thought that was a very interesting show. And you know, now we're on to Ozark. So some of my favorite actors and actresses, and one of my favorite shows. So, but I wanted to start the taste.
I'm sure there are people here who understand what you're talking about. I have no idea what that is, but okay.
Probably better off. Well, let's start at the tasting. So, you know, one of my favorite wines that we make, and our signature wine in the portfolio, is our Bob's Ranch, which is from the Sonoma coast. And I just wanted to go ahead and pass you the bottle. I'm going to pour myself a little first, and then I'll just hand it off over to you and Rutherford, if that's all right. And if you could grab it, and there it is. All right. Look at it. Look at it. Works.
Oh, the magic. Okay. Did we do that right?
Yeah, no, I think we did.
Did we do that right? Somebody's got to let us know. So 2018.
Yes, this is the
Bob's Ranch Pinot.
And this is so this is our obviously flagship wine in the portfolio. It's from our Bob's Ranch property, which is in the Petaluma Wind Gap, an area that's sparsely planted to vine, and you know, it's largely windswept hillsides on the Sonoma coast, but, you know, this is about Bob. So can you tell me about why this wine's so special to you?
Yeah, well, I certainly like the name. So this is, my dad's name was Bob Walt, and he's the reason we're in this business at all. And he was a farmer. He never had any interest in making wine, which was a big point of difference between the two of us. And I think in particular, the fact that we have this vineyard named after my dad is so appropriate because, as you know, Jeff, this vineyard, I think maybe more than anyone in our portfolio, relies more on farming than any other vineyard, probably. I mean, farming is such an important part of the operation here. And my dad was always about, a wine really is always just made in the vineyard. The cellar just puts a little bit of the touching. the touch up on it at the very end. I'm not sure our winemakers would agree with that, but I do think, and you look around at this vineyard with the way the grapes are, and I know I hear you talk often about how the grapes are in these, they're sort of chicks and hens, where when you look at a cluster of grapes, some of them are big and some of them are small, and that makes it really difficult in the farming, because you've got to spend so much time in the vineyard watching how the ripening is going. I mean, obviously if you get a lot of heat, the little berries are going to turn to raisin while the big berries get a little riper. You know, I mean, it's just this beautiful balance that you've got to, and there's no substitute for just good farming.
No, they work really hard. I know Megan spends, and Dawn and Dominic and Alice, and they spend an incredible amount of time. And this is that part of Sonoma where you see the Petaluma Wind Gap really connect. So it's the connection of the Bodega Bay, and we see wind kind of come in across just the middle part of the Sonoma coast, and then it's deposited in the San Francisco Bay. And yeah, what that does is creates this difference in when we have the clusters actually pollinated. So we get those little berries, and those little berries are full of concentration and flavor, and then those larger berries are full of more acidity and brightness. And that's really what I love about this wine, is that it's a wine that blends both exuberance and power, but also an incredible freshness. And I'm going to go ahead and try this and tell you about it, a little bit more.
I beat you. Cheers, by the way. Cheers, and cheers to everybody who's watching us here.
Yeah, cheers.
So, and I hope, by the way, are people going to send us some questions, Jeff, or folks are going to ask us some questions, aren't they?
Yeah, we're hoping to see some
comments
online. We've got, I know we had a little bit of a delay. Facebook caught us and then grabbed us and then put us back on. So I guess we've been accepted, and now it's a lot of fun. So we're looking for as many questions as we can on this wine, especially for those members who had just received this. This is currently only available to our wine club members. Some of the restaurateurs have come in and bought this wine, which is really great. But it's right now really just out there for our members to join. And so we're looking for as many questions as we can gather. One of the fun stories about it.
Yes.
No, I was say one of the fun stories.
I love this delay. Yeah.
the fun of internet. We used to host a party out there. That was a lot of fun. Our lobster feed. And I know some people that was the first time that they actually got a chance to see it.
I think that's when people really they get this idea when you're out there, you really can experience what we talk about this vineyard, is how it's so windy, which has its own effect on the grapes. I mean, when you stand up there, one of the difficult parts about having a party in that vineyard is that it is so windy.
Yeah, keeping the light soils off of our guests was an issue. Keeping the tents up was an issue. We had all kinds of fun.
Yeah.
So we do have a question. We did have a question from Tom. I'm hoping you can answer this question. What's the best wine to pair with tri-tip?
Tri-tip is that's a meat?
It's a cut of steak.
Right?
So for those of you checking in.
How about that?
Kathryn Hall is actually a vegetarian.
Well, okay.
And so,
I am, but of course I have an opinion on everything, so I can tell you what I think.
No,
but I'll tell you what I would do. I would pair, when I think about what would I pair a real rich, juicy, savory steak with, I think about the same thing if I'm making a dish that has a sauce that's very savory, that has lots of spices in it, and that's I tend to make spices that have sauces that have they're very rich and sort of creamy. So I like a wine that has has a lot of nice acid in it, and so for that reason, I think the Walt actually would be great. But in general, I sort of like I think the sort of full-bodied Pinot Noirs that come from farther down, like from the Santa Rita Hills area, the Clopepi. Pinot Noir is really wonderful with things like steak. Not that I know it personally, but I would guess. What do you think, Jeff? Because you eat meat.
Well, yeah, I do. And actually, you know, down in Napomo, there's a restaurant that's famous for tri-tip. And if you ever have a chance to head down to Napomo, I think it's called Jasper. And it's just, that is where the tri-tip is, the cut was basically perfected in my mind. But I would go here. So I like tri-tip with a little bit of a spicy rub. And I think that flavor profile wise, you want a lot of flavor when you're gonna stand up against a you know, a saltier, spicier piece of meat. And so for me, that's where I always go is our Bob's Ranch Pinot Noir. But we have more.
I mean, I think yeah, I'll tell you though. I'd say just in general, for me, this is my favorite Pinot that we make. If you sort of balance all the qualities that we look for in a great Pinot Noir, where you want to have that burst of flavor, lots of bright fruit, and at the same time that sort of just savoriness and acidity. I mean, I think Bob's has the whole package for me.
Yeah. No, it's a very special. So we did have a question coming in from Veronica, who's asking, what should we be drinking now?
Whatever it is, lots of it. Yeah. So I think, don't you think, the thing about Pinot Noir is if you're just going to have one meal, one wine with a meal, whether a Pinot Noir is the best to pair, because you can go from the beginning of the meal, because it has light and has nice acidity, all the way through to the end. If you pick a Pinot that has a lot of flavor in it, like this one. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, right now, I love our wines. Since this is a show about our wines, I'll talk about our wines. I think that one of the best parts about Pinot Noir is how well it goes with food, but also how well it just stands up on its own. And so I've been drinking a lot of our 14s right now. That's where I'm at in my cellar. And I am big on the Santa Lucia Highlands. I thought that the Sierra Mar was probably one of our just best wines that we made in that vintage, especially from that area. That's what I'm drinking now. I'm drinking through the 14s. It was also the first ripe year in the Willamette Valley. And the Willamette Valley was typically, you know, the typical year there, cold, not a lot of fruit, a lot of nice acid, but more secondary flavors. And that was the first year where you had kind of an abundance of fruit in a warmer year. So for me, any of our Walt wines from the 2014 vintage, that's where I'm at.
You know, I think a lot of people who are tuned in right now probably know Bob's from the 2017, because we haven't released 2018 except to the members.
Yep.
But so I had some 17 last night of this, just to, because I knew we were going to be talking about the 18 tonight, to remind me of this. And for me, I mean, this has so many of the same qualities that we loved in the 2017. It's got acidity, it's got that nice sort of savory quality to it. It's big, it's at the same time, it's light in texture, because it is a Pinot Noir after all. But I think on top of that, the 18 has this sort of intensity of fruit, brightness of fruit, that's very special and unique to this particular vintage.
Yeah, for sure. And so for Dominique, who just asked us that very question, I think
how about that?
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. The intenseness and the flavor in 18s are really big and abundant. And I thought 17 had this really clean freshness and bright acidity. I think it's tough because we have wines that are, it's difficult to talk about vintage as opposed to when we're talking about our Cabernets for Hall, because we're talking about Napa. And so there's some variation in vintage, but you have relatively the same weather and vintage characteristics as opposed to us. And for Walt, you know, vintage is very different in the Santa Rita Hills than it is in the Willamette Valley. And even if you look at 19, you know, I think everyone could think about what 19 was in California, but it was actually really cold in Oregon. So we had, wines where our alcohol were much lower in Oregon in 2019 than we were seeing, just in the sugar levels that were coming in the Sonoma coast. So it's a tougher conversation when we're talking about those things, which is great. And so you've been down to the winery recently. What's going on down there? And obviously I know, Vault Wines, for those who don't know, Vault Wines is made at the Hall facility. So can you tell us what's going on at Hall?
Well, we actually are very busy in the production area. The blending, we were the wine makers were in blending yesterday at a safe distance, by the way. It was very odd, but they were like far across the room from each other, but they were in their blending. And if you look at, we did some bottling just recently. So a lot of that, if you look at the back part of the vineyard, there's a lot of action going on. Of course, the front, tasting rooms everywhere are closed, so it's looking pretty sorry. And then those of us like you and like me, Jeff, who can work from home, we do. So
yeah, no, absolutely. I was just at Bob's Ranch because no one was there, so I had out of the house for the day, and there's no better place to take your dog for a walk and for your kids for a walk than to go walk a vineyard. So it was fun to see the shoots. We're maybe this high right now off of the vine.
Great.
And for the Chardonnay, and then the Pinot Noir, we're just starting to see the little buds start to become full shoots. So that's pretty interesting for us.
And that's head of the Cabernet, because I'm here at Sacrochet, and the buds just came out like yesterday. We don't have, there's no leaves and just that little bit of a fuzz that you can see, So the Pinot Noir's ahead.
Yeah, we're a little ahead. And I know we are in the Central Coast too, because I got my truck stuck when I was down there trying to actually figure out what was going on. Okay. So Matt Lynn is actually on, and she and he or she wants to ask you, which of the wines do you enjoy most?
Well, I am, not just because Jeff is here looking at me, but I love our Waltz, and I think my favorite of the Waltz are not only the Bob's Pinot, but I am loving the Bob's Chardonnay, which, by the way, none of you have had yet, I don't think, except for Jeff has had it. But it's going to be killer when it comes out. I just think so. I really do. I love working with the Pinot Noir. I mean, I think it's, from a winemaking perspective, it's got so many challenges to make the wine, and it requires such precision, and we pride ourselves on being precise farmers and also precise winemakers. So I really think our expertise shines when it comes to our Pinot Noirs and our Chardonnays.
Yeah, and Megan and Allison have been working really hard on both of those wines. It's one of the questions. It's one of the places that we can get to most frequently, and I know that it's also the place where they spend a lot of their time. So Claire asked us where we are right now. I don't know if I know a lot of people are just joining in, so maybe we can say that you're at home, right?
I'm at home. I'm in Rutherford which my house is on the Sacrochet Vineyard, a Cabernet vineyard that we use for several of our wines at Hall. And Jeff, lucky Jeff, is in, where are you, Jeff?
I'm in Marin County, so I live on the northern side of Marin County, about 25 minutes from this vineyard. So the wind that you see behind me is the same wind gap that we get, and I'm here with my family and my kids, who are all staring at me through the kitchen window right now.
Because you're not letting them come out, right?
No.
Yeah.
But so Alexander asked, how can we experience some of these wines now that the tasting rooms are closed? So for those of you who don't know, in California, all of our tasting rooms are currently closed to public visits, and for the reasons of safety, we've asked all our employees to work from home. So a lot of them are helping us in shipping, and a lot of us are helping in phones. But do you have some good ways that people can connect with us outside of what we're doing today?
Well, you bet. So, and this, by the way, I think is the most fun of all because they're live and they're in a group. And I just think now more than ever, we want to connect with people. If we can't be with them, at least I can, certainly for me, I mean, I'm using Zoom. I never knew how to use Zoom before, by the way. A couple weeks ago, I never had used it before. And now I feel like it's like my connection to the world. But in addition to these kind of these tastings, and we're going to be doing these for Walt and Hall and Baca every day at 4 o'clock. So, be there or be square. But in addition to that, we've got some, we're going to do some bespoke tastings where people can actually make appointments with key members of our staff, and they will sort of walk you through and sort of figure out a tasting that works for you. I mean, we've got lots of ideas, but since we're doing it one-on-one, we can sort of tailor something just to your needs. And of course, how else can you join a wine? I highly recommend buying some wine and then get your friends together and have a party and do it. I mean, it's just amazing how much fun it is. And I think it's not a real substitute for being in person, but I think it's a huge help in these times when we're all feeling so.
Yeah, I mean, there's a really fun group of people that I'm friends with, and they are. Oh, sorry, excuse me. I need to make sure my wife has a little wine. So you say hi to her.
Yeah.
So we're
I like
so
that.
we have a group of good friends. We call it Pizza Night, and last week we all got together on Zoom on the TV, and we were all figuring it out, and we all ordered from different restaurants, and a lot of them are tuning in right now, as I can see. And so we're trying to do the best we can to keep restaurants going. That we have a lot of great restaurant partners, obviously, as a winery. Are there other small businesses that you're supporting right now?
Well, we're doing like you are doing. We're doing takeout a lot. And by the way, it's not just getting the food from someplace. I am so glad to be able to get in a car and get off this vineyard. As much as I love it here, just a little space, is pretty sweet. So, and then of course I make my family FaceTime me all the time. So.
Yeah. No, for sure. I've been trying to keep up with my parents as much as I can. So, a lot of your team has been volunteering, and I know that we've been getting out. Are there ways that people can get out, especially in Napa and Sonoma? I know that we've got a lot of people tuning in from all over the U.S. right now, but what are some of the places that you've been hearing that have been reaching out?
Oh, this is such a nice story. I mean, I hope this is where you were going, Jeff, but even if it's not, I want to tell it. It's like, so we've had this program at the winery. I know you know this, but for many years that gives everybody 40 hours a year to donate their time to the charity of their choice. And honestly, it hasn't been fully utilized, which has been a huge personal disappointment for me over the years. It's been used some, but not all. And I already say this, and then you donate 40 hours, but then you get full pay while you're doing it from the winery. And so now the big issue we have before us in Napa Valley is just hunger, just making sure that all families have nutritious food to eat. So our tasting room staff has just been killing it. They've been down at the food bank. They've been doing distribution of food. They've been packaging food. And some of them actually have now run out of their 40 hours of paid time to do that. And they're still doing it because they love it. I actually think this is a program that helps those who do it as much as it does the organizations that they help. So that's been a really there's always beautiful things that come out of the most wretched situations. And I think for me, that's one of them.
Yeah, I think that it's been fun to watch, and I think that what we're trying to do today bring some happiness. The more stories that I find myself tuned to, John Krasinski to do his happy stories YouTube page, people that are starting to reach out and feel more comfortable. Obviously, we want to share those stories as much as possible. So I wanted to just ask you one more time, because we did have a huge delay in Facebook Live. So Bob's Ranch is a story about our wine, but is a story about a bottle of wine in a vineyard for the winery, but it's also a story about somebody else. And so if you could just retell that story that you told ahead, that would be great.
I'll tell this story any day, all day. So we named this vineyard after my dad. By the way, in general, I really like naming things after family anyway. I think for me, when I'm buying a product special, I like to know that there's a real person behind it. And I think putting your name on a bottle, on a vineyard, just sort of, there's a certain amount of pride that comes with that. And then that sort of probably encourages you to do even better. But on top of that, I think it's a reminder that we're not an entity, we are people. We are Jeff Zappelli and Kathryn Hall, and we're people who put this together. So the vineyard is called Bob's Vineyard, and that's named after my dad. His name was Bob Walt. He is absolutely the reason that we are in this business today. He loved to grow grapes. He loved to farm. He could prune with the best of them. He was a farmer at heart and loved the product. And I was saying this earlier too, the fact that he could do the vineyard, I think he would be especially proud that Bob's was named after him, because maybe more than any vineyard that we own or operate or partner with, the farming is absolutely critical on this vineyard, because there's so many peculiarities in the way that it is planted and the varietals that are there.
Yeah. No, I think Bob would have been really proud of. This is one of the most complex vineyards that we have, with 47 different blocks of fruit, with 17 different clonal varieties of Pinot Noir. But when you put it together, it's like layering or sewing a quilt. And that, for me, is always a lot of fun with the winemakers and go through those wines. We just did that. Luckily, we had a chance to do that right before we all had to stay home. So, I think that it's a testament to, when you have a great grape, when you have a great site, it's really about, that's the start, how you make great wine.
Well, actually, there's that adage that says you can make bad wine from great grapes, but you will never make great wine from bad grapes.
Yeah.
It really does begin and almost end, in my view, in the vineyard. It's just so important to have a fabulous site.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I think I just wanted to say, so cheers to you one more time. Wanted to wrap up with our audience today and say thank you for joining us. We are rolling with the technology as it is. So if there was some what we did today, if there was some hiccups along the way, thank you. And Kathryn, I'll give you the last word.
Well, stay with us. 4:00. Jeff, you're doing a series of these on Walt. Yes. Coming up. We are all super excited about doing this. I'm excited. Jeff's excited. Those of us who've been working behind the scenes to get this going are really fired up, want to deliver as wonderful an experience online as we have been trying for many years to deliver in person. So come back and enjoy, and let's connect more and more and more in the weeks ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And if you're interested in a great bottle of wine, I invite you to join us online at wines.com. Give us a call. Our staff is here to just talk about wine. If you want to talk about wine, join a tasting in one of our bespoke tastings. And Kathryn will be on tomorrow night at 4 o'clock with Mike Reynolds for Hall. So thank you, and cheers to everyone.
That's the deal.
Cheers to you,
Cheers
Kathryn.
to
Thank
everyone. Cheers to you. Thank you, Jeff.
you. You're welcome. Thank you so much.